So the average American spends about 27 minutes each way to work every day. And that's nearly 10 full days a year spent between commuting back and forth to work, and I used to be part of that statistic. But in 2021, I decided to take a shot to do exactly what I wanted to do, and that is to start an online business. So in this video, I'm gonna break down what that transition actually looked like, what I've learned, mistakes I've made, and most of all, was it actually worth it? So if you've ever thought about doing Amazon FBA, whether that's part-time on the side or want to do it full-time like what I did, or just starting any business at all in general, well, this video might be helpful to you. Part 1, the regret minimization framework.
So I wanted to project myself forward to age 80 and say, okay, now I'm looking back on my life. I want to have minimized the number of regrets I have.
So before diving into the reasons why I had left my 9-to-5 job, let's actually take a look at the most rewarding part of the journey so far, which is the freedom and flexibility it really offers. So I do my journal most days as much as I can, and I always feel grateful when I write down the freedom and the flexibility that this business had really given me. Having control of my time was the biggest motivator for me to get started, along with the financial freedom as well. And as you know, time is our most valuable asset, and it doesn't matter who you are, we all get 24 hours a day. And for me, I just hated wasting time, and especially I regret it so much if I spend it on like doing dumb, wasteful things. And I'm guilty about this, all the time, like grabbing my phone if nothing's going on, if I'm not stimulated, I'll scroll into social media, or I'll constantly check my email, refresh it to just make sure I'm constantly doing something, and to the point where it's really hard for me to just like not do anything. And maybe even drinking this coffee is not going to help the cause, but I mean, who doesn't love coffee, right? And some of you can relate to this because it is the act of commuting, driving to work every single day, back and forth, right? Like it's something that we need to do, or unless you're lucky, one of those that got to work from home. But that was my biggest pet peeve and biggest motivator to why I really wanted to leave my 9-to-5. And it was maybe the opposite for some people. Maybe they didn't like the work itself. And for me, the work ethic part wasn't the issue. Whatever job I was doing, I usually, do my best, right? Because that's the character that you will determine whether you do anything. So that wasn't the issue. For me, it was the commute, because I don't know, I just found it like a biggest waste of time. Yes, of course, you can be productive with it. You can listen to a podcast or a motivating audiobook or something like that. But again, I could have done something with that time, right? Like in my own terms, whether that's making a nice breakfast, taking my time, or reading a book, or maybe it could be listening to a podcast or an audiobook, but I like my own terms, right? I wasn't forced to doing it, but we tried to make it as productive as we can. And a lot of it slowly stemmed from personal realization, right? It was just something that I realized it wasn't, immediately. It had come through, multiple times where I just had the thoughts like, okay, I'm putting all this hard work, but what if I do something on my own and put the same hard work? I know I could work hard and have a work ethic, but what if I really put in something to my own? What can I come out of it? Like, right? Of course, the financial security and stability was going to be a big part of it, but I knew that if I put in the work, I was going to figure it out, guys. Like, that was my only job in the world, is to figure this out and put my time and effort. I could figure it out, and I'm sure you could as well. And as weird as that might sound, I just knew I had that capability, right? But it wasn't the work ethic, as I mentioned. It was more of a mental thing than anything. And fast forward, I actually did quit my job, right? So the time to make a decision to quit wasn't the hardest part. It was the anticipation of doing it, right? It was about a couple weeks before I really want to do it, and there wasn't an exact date, you guys. Like, it's not like I planned about it. It just came like, okay, I think this is the day. I'm gonna put in my 2-week notice here, or whatever you want to do. You can just walk out. But I suggest, of course, don't burn that bridge, whatever you may have. So yeah, try to put in a 2-week notice as much as you can. It's gonna be all mental, I'm telling you guys, because that was the thing that was the biggest hurdle for me. It was just like, I was too afraid to just like, okay, I quit. It was just more like, okay, let's build up the courage to do it. And what made it even tougher is that I tried different side hustles in the past before. Like I was a photographer, so I did photography like on the weekends, but I couldn't muster the courage to kind of do it full time. It wasn't as consistent. I also even tried like social media marketing. There's so many like YouTube ads back back in the day, like, oh, you should try YouTube, social media marketing and stuff like that. So I tried that. It wasn't for me, you know. And lastly, the closest thing I got to reselling was actually selling on eBay, right? But it was more of like going to different thrift stores, looking for a vintage shirt or item, stuff like that. And you know, I tried, but it wasn't for me either. eBay was a lot of work, you know. I had to take the photo, description, all that stuff. And this is why Amazon worked for me, because I had previous experience of selling, you know, college textbooks. That's how I started. I started, you know, with college textbooks, and I was doing that in my school with the previous, you know, kids underneath me. So I kind of knew it. And with Amazon, the whole process made it easier because I pretty much send everything and they do the shipping, packing, and all that stuff. So when the opportunity with Amazon actually came in, you know, I actually tested it. I enjoyed the process. It was a lot simpler and easier. And I was actually doing a lot of work on my computer online, which I wanted and kind of fit the goal I wanted. So I knew when this opportunity arose, and if I don't take full advantage of it now, you know, as I get older and stuff, whatever situation with personal life, I wasn't gonna get another opportunity. And I knew that I had to do this, give it my best effort, or else I was going to regret it. And funny enough, the day when I actually quit my job, I started to watch a bunch of Jeff Bezos interview, like old school interview. And one of the questions someone had asked him was like, because he was, if you didn't know, Jeff Bezos had a 6-figure job at Wall Street. He was all set, you know, he was stable, living a good life and stuff like that. And that's when he decided to, you know, quit his job to pursue Amazon, or starting Amazon at that time, because he ran into the opportunity of the internet. And in that interview, he actually explained what the regret minimization is. So how the story went is that Jeff went to his boss, right? And he said, he goes like, hey, listen, I have this crazy idea that I'm going to do. He said, I'm going to start this company selling books online. And keep in mind, this is something that he had been talking to his boss, but it was more of a, you know, a general way. He wasn't really thinking that Jeff was serious of, you know, starting this company selling stuff on the internet, right? So his boss said, let's go for a walk, right? So they took a 2-hour stroll in Central Park and actually had a conversation about this. And at the end of it, his boss said, wow, this is really a good idea. It's an even better idea for someone that doesn't have a good job already. So his boss, you know, convinced Jeff that, you know, give him, you know, 48 hours to really think about this, to make sure he's making the right decision. So then Jeff went home and was trying to find the right framework of mind to make, you know, a big decision like this. And as a background, he already talked to his wife about it, and his wife was 100% with him, whatever, you know, decisions he made. So the only decision he had to do was for himself, whether he's going to pursue this thing, starting an online business, selling on the internet, or keep his job, right? So as Jeff said, the decision was super simple and clear to him because he used the framework of regret minimization. And here's him, you know, explaining it.
So I wanted to project myself forward to age 80 and say, okay, now I'm looking back on my life. I want to have minimized the number of regrets I have. And you know, I knew that when I was 80, I was not going to regret having tried this. I was not going to regret having wanted, you know, trying to participate in this thing called the internet that I thought was going to be a really big deal.
I've also said, which is profoundly useful, is that if we just, you know, project ourselves when we're like really old, like let's say 80, because it's gonna get us away from the, you know, the daily dramas, the daily things, emotional things that we're attached to. You know, for him, it was the bonus that he was going to lose, because it was halfway through the year when he decided to do this, was he was gonna lose his bonus, right? Like, so that's something that clouds our decision in the short term. But if you fast forward, like what he said, picture when you're 80 years old, is that something gonna affect to the decision that you're gonna make, or the regret that you're not gonna do, right? Because he's saying that a lot of people make the regrets of omission. And Jeff is saying that a lot of people make their regrets in the act of omission and not commission. Omission is something that, you know, we bypass, we don't really take control of it. The act of commission is something we do in purpose, you know? So a lot of people go through life, he's saying that we don't do anything thinking about it. We just let bypass certain things in terms of us, and by the end, the regret hurts more because we could have done something about it. So guys, no overnight success here. It took about 2-3 years to actually get to a point where I'm at, right? And I'm still working at it. It's not just like I can just relax on a beach and not do anything. I'm still trying to learn because I want to get to the next level, improve the systems and standard of operations what I'm doing, where I can slowly, hopefully, that's my goal, is to get it as automated as possible. I've already hired a couple virtual assistants to help me out with this, to help me source leads. Now I'm just making the decision whether to buy the product or lead or not. And that's where the realistic expectations needs to come in, because you're gonna run into problems and issues, but you shouldn't let that stop you. Like in life in general, like we deal a lot of things already, whether that's your first heartbreak, right? Like you get over that hump, you might think the world is going to end, but you get over that hump, you heal, you move on, you grow, you mature. It could be family member that passed away or something like that. So we deal a lot of stuff in personal life, but in business it's literally the same thing. It's just for example, sports is another thing. You win some, you lose some, but you don't just stop playing, you continue doing it, especially if you're trying to make it as a professional, right? So it will take time and effort. It's not a get rich quick scheme as you might have seen in some of these ads. It's like very misleading. And in terms of the time I invested, I started doing it as a side hustle to make sure the concept works, right? So for me, it took about 8 months to a year for me to get really comfortable, kind of know the basics of it, not the whole thing, but at least the basics, where I can comfortably say to myself, like, okay, if I do this full time, like if I jump into this, will I be okay doing this? Because I know like I can put in the work, but it's more of a mental thing. This is where it all kind of circles back, because I've already proven the concept work. I can put in the work. Now it's time to actually commit to this. And so I did. So my commitment was like, I was attending conference, right? I was attending trade show. Like one of the trade shows I went was ASD. So I flew to Vegas for 2, 3, 4 days in hopes to land, a wholesale supplier. That was my thing there. And again, that was another mental thing, because I could just stay home, right? I don't need to do that. But it was more of like, what happens? What if I just go out there? You never know what's going to happen, right? Like I could get lucky and land a supplier, and that could have changed the trajectory of my business, because sometimes all it takes is one supplier, right? That can help and boost your Amazon business. So yeah, I made the effort there to go out there, my own money, my own time and stuff like that. Networking is another big thing. Just, it's not more of like, just go on there network, but actually asking questions that you're going through with your business, right? Like asking for help, advice, like what other people have gone through that kind of help them with their business. Same thing. You might be watching this video because you're thinking about quitting your job to either do this as a part-time side hustle or maybe eventually doing it full-time. And for me, I was always curious, like, okay, how did this person do it? Because if they can do it, this is how they solved it, I can do it as well. It's not like we're building rockets here, you guys. So if one person can do it, that should be a motivation that you yourself can do it. Because again, if you really put your mind into it, as cliche as it might sound, you're eventually going to figure it out if that is the thing that you want to do. And another thing I stumbled upon is using the right tools and softwares. Like when I first started, I was using Google Sheets, right? I mean, I still use it now, but in terms of like repricing, I stumbled upon a repricer, automatic AI repricer called Be Cool, where it will reprice every single product I have on my inventory, where I don't have to constantly tinker with it, every time where I need to change the price, like $1 or $2, whatever it may be. It can do it while I'm sleeping. So the idea of the repricer saved me a lot of time, especially like me, I sell a lot of different products in different categories right now. Another software that helped me out a lot was SellerAmp. I use it every single day in terms of my business. It helps me fast forward in terms of analyzing. I can see how many times it sells per month, where are the different prices and stuff like that. And in combination of Keepa. And if you're an Amazon seller, I don't know how we are going to survive without Keepa. So that is the software tool that everyone needs to have, right? Like Keepa allows you to do so many things. As I say, it's going to be your cheat sheet, because you can see the past history data of what the prices were, how many people were selling on it, what is the stock count of a certain seller, who's getting the buy box right now, or dominating the buy box. So there's a lot of information these softwares do, because it just helps my business overall in terms of efficiency and time saved overall. And guys, I also tried softwares that didn't work. One thing that comes to my mind is tactical arbitrage, right? Tactical arbitrage, I tried it for a little bit. I've watched YouTube video tutorials, but it wasn't for me. Like I really did try, because you know, I like the idea of how you can just go to a website and you run the software there, you wait for like an hour, a couple hours, then you get the results of what were the price that were lowered, right? But the downside of that is it doesn't check a lot of things. I found like a lot of the information data weren't accurate. I don't know, it could have been better now, but that's tried it when I first, you know, was doing Amazon, but it just wasn't for me. So was quitting my 9-to-5 job actually worth it, right? That is the $1 million question that we all want to know. And let's get real here. You know, it wasn't an easy journey, but after, you know, doing it since 2021, and I can confidently say I would happy to do it over again, that it was way definitely worth it. It was definitely the best decision I've ever made, because it had just aligned to what I was looking for. The biggest thing was the freedom, flexibility of my time, along with the financial freedom that I was going to have in control of it. And it wasn't necessarily, I didn't like the job, I just wanted to do my own thing, right? Like after putting in the work and sacrifice, I was able to reap the benefits of it. You know, it allowed me to pursue the passion that I love, like in terms of like traveling, right? Like last year, I was able to travel to Japan, Dubai, Australia, Vietnam, my home country in the Philippines, and most importantly, I achieved my bucket list of living in Mexico. I've always wanted to do that, and I was able to really accomplish it, and still able to run my business at the same time. Financially, it didn't get the best start, right? Like in terms of the business, I had struggled in terms of working the cash flow. That was foreign to me. So I knew that this is something I had to learn or tackle, right? It's gonna be a juggle in terms of do that, because with the 9-to-5, you were getting a steady paycheck every single week. With the business, you know, it all depends on your sales, what inventory you can find, and you pretty much rinse and repeat that. It's not going to be the same every single time unless you start building systems and frameworks with that, which, you know, takes time, right? Understandable. So I had to do it milestone per milestone. So first it was getting the $1,000 in sales. Now next, let's hit the 10,000s, right? Like next it was maybe like 20, then 50, then 100. Then, you know, after doing it for a couple of years, I looked down and it was like over 2 million in total sales the past, you know, couple years here. So it was just a number that I couldn't believe when I first started doing, because I didn't really aim for that, right? It was just more of like, let's do 1,000 and see how it works. Okay, like we did 1,000, let's do a 10. So it was a progressive movement, and that is something that, you know, another realistic expectation that you should do if you're going to do this. And another thing, it wasn't all like sunshine and butterflies, right? There were struggles as well. Like I've talked this in other videos where, you know, dealing with returns, like tons of returns, where people can just like buy a shoe, try it out, run it for a little bit and return it, but I can't sell it to Amazon. It's not brand new. So that's one of the, you know, the cons of obviously having the business. But again, that's what you sign up for in terms of this. But don't let that hinder that returns. What are you going to do with it and stuff? There's different ways to do it, right? Of course, you can resell it into third-party markets like Facebook Market, eBay, Mercari, Craigslist. There's a lot of things. You can, you know, donate it. You can give it to your relative. You can even keep it to yourself. So there's a lot of ways to do those returns. And again, guys, it's such a small percentage of the business that you shouldn't let that stop you. Another thing was like people think about like, oh, what do I have to file taxes and stuff like that? It's like, okay, you shouldn't even be thinking about taxes when you haven't even started about doing the business yet, right? Like, so there's a lot of mental hurdles in terms of this. And again, that was the struggle I had too. And I just wanted to, you know, confirm to you, this is where actually you just have to take one step at a time and you deal with it as when they come in. So definitely requires a lot of patience and being able to learn how to adapt. Just like when, you know, the whole situation in 2020 come in when we were all locked down, right? So we all had to adapt. It wasn't just like, okay, I like what it was before, but now that's not a reality. So, you know, we can always adapt no matter what. So overall, it was definitely worth it. I can tell you that you will learn a lot in terms of skills in general that, first of all, they never teach us in school, right? Like in terms of your cash flow or how to get financing and credit and all this stuff. You will learn it, guys. So it's incredible lesson with that just itself, right? Even if I always say, even if my business fails, I can start another one because I have learned those set of skills on how to really run one or properly, right? Like doing your LLC, doing your EIN, doing your taxes and stuff like that. These are skills that you don't learn in schools, but you do have to learn it when you're running your business. You do have to figure it out. So that's one thing that it was just like, you know, worth it for me, just the lessons I've learned so far. And yeah, the rest are just pretty much bonus at this point, you know, having the freedom, always can't take it for granted. Being able to travel the world, you know, that's awesome. But also it's important to be real here. If you really want to do Amazon FBA and do this, you know, seriously, you're gonna have to eventually start and get over that mental hurdle and just start small, you guys. That's how I started, you know, I started as a side hustle and just see if this works, especially if you have a job ready. You got nothing to lose. Just spend a few hours on the weekend trying to get this whole thing started, create your Amazon account, try to find some products and just see where it takes you, right? Like there's no big commitment here. And that's definitely my advice there. Just definitely test out the water, see if you like it. If you have any questions, feel free to comment down below. Be happy to help you out as much as possible. And yeah, hope this video helped you guys out to the experience that I went through and just kind of get over that mental hurdle, which we all kind of struggle with. So yeah. And guys, thank you so much for watching the video. If you want to learn how to source more products for your Amazon FBA business, check this video out right here. Thank you. See you later.